rank the quarterbacks. Shall we
do that? Let's
go back and do it. We talked enough already in the recap. Let's get this.
We got, and I mean, I love the rankings thing. We did the jersey. I think the fans liked it, and even more importantly, it gives everybody a chance to give their intake, right? So our definitive version doesn't mean it's your definitive version, but this is our definitive version. We want to know your rankings down in the comments below. Good, bad, indifferent. If you agree with us, great. If you don't, we want to know. Now, I don't know. I don't necessarily think we need to go first to last, but I'm gonna pick a name here.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna start it off. So I'm gonna go. So I kind of talked about this earlier during the stream. I was maybe a little harsh on the Gamblers pick, Clayton Thorson. Now, after watching some of his highlights, I am fully on board, and I'm super excited to see him play. I don't know if I put him at number 1, but I'm thinking 2, 3. I absolutely know you disagree with me, but let's fight it out. Let's fight it out.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, some of these are going to be hard for me because I have arguments for like the middle portion being anywhere. So like if I were to do this solo, I would say it'd be like very slim like rankings where it's like I have to do this because I have to do this.
That's kind of how it is
in terms of that mid pack.
Right.
So yeah, if we're talking Thorson, I don't know. I would put Thorson like 4 or 5 maybe.
Well, okay. We'll start him at 4, but we can move him up to 3 as we go.
We might rearrange this because I mean, there's a few of them I'm like, I know that there's 3 I would put instantly just off of my knowledge on the top 3 or 4. So
I'm curious.
I mean, what's your next one?
Well, I'm curious. Who would you put last?
Would I put last?
I have one in my head. If you want me to be the bad cop, I'll say it.
Well, I'm only going to do this because I need to see more proof. I talked about this with the Generals. I'm going to need to see Ben Holmes step up from his last stop. That again, I know that the guy was very much talented as one of the winningest quarterbacks at Tarleton State, but I'm referencing his spring league appearances, and I don't know. That's the only thing. A talented roster surrounding him, though. But he right now goes at my number 8.
Number 8. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's put him there for now because and this is nothing against him because I think he does follow us. So thanks for that. And again, this is all, we're talking like 8.1 to 8.3 is like the difference between all of these guys, right? So at number 8, there's basically 1, 2, and 3 in my book, right? There's a lot of this is even, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and this is another one talking about proving himself. I would say Kyle Laletta. I would put him near the bottom as well. Now, I've heard the arguments both ways, and this is not anything with legal troubles or anything like that. Quite honestly, I don't know anything about that, so this doesn't come into play.
Sure.
I'm more looking at a couple things. The team around him, right? So again, looking at the Panthers, I mean, Patterson has a solid team around him. Teamu and Scott with the Bandits and the Stars, I think they have a good set of receivers that's going to keep them happy. Now, where I worry is Alex Magoo, Kyle Laletta, do they have, and now I know you thought that the Stallions had a stellar draft. I actually would have put it near the bottom. And again, we're talking like fractions of a difference that are separating these teams. But I would have like the Stars, the Generals, Panthers near the top in the top 3 as far as like the overall draft.
Sure, overall.
So I think that definitely impacts these ratings because again, we're not just rating the quarterback, the person. We got to rate how they're going to be able to utilize the teams around them.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly, and again, no offense to you, Kyle Laletta, but I had him. That was my 8.
Okay, I mean, I had. Laletta has an impressive resume at Richmond. So like coming out of the draft, he was actually, he was ranking higher up in the QBs. It's just that, it wasn't likely he was going to get a starting spot. That was the thing. He was going to be in the backup position for his tenure in the NFL. And you know what? I mean, honestly, just based on the resume alone, like I couldn't put him last. Like his time at Richmond, he really did shine. Um, but I think for now, I mean, if I'm looking at just the overall QB room, he does go at 7 for me.
Okay.
That is where I'm putting him at the time being.
Okay. So so we have Shea Patterson, Jordan Teamu, Brian Scott, Alex Magoo, Kyle Slaughter left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I have my top 3 in my head. So I think we get the rough ones out of the way, the Band-Aid pulls. Let's get the bottom of the list done. So I would say probably, at least what I'm looking at now, Slaughter at 5, Magoo at 6. I think just, again, based off of the teams around them, but I could be swayed. I could be swayed to go either way. And again, we might move some of these around. But do you have an argument for the other path here?
Well, I know like Slaughter and Magoo both have NFL experience. I think, see, it's funny. I actually have Magoo as like my 4.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And that's just for the fact that, I love the intangibles and ability he has from when he has time at FIU. I think that really sticks out. Slaughter, he did have his shining moment. At least with Denver in the preseason, he put up some solid numbers in 2017. And as of course for some Minnesota fans I saw online, they really like him too. I think just with his time away, getting back in the saddle, he's done a lot of practice squad work. I think that's why I put him at 6, but he does have a lot of people that have giving him upside. So, that's why I couldn't put him behind Laletta. At least like Slaughter's been around the NFL a lot longer. And I think there's reasons for that more so. And I'm going to put him there, So I also like
Slaughter 6.
Yes, I think Slaughter. Yeah, Slaughter.
Slaughter or Slaughter? Yeah, I don't know, quite honestly. So I apologize.
Add that to the name.
We'll get it on the next show.
Like I said, re-add that. But he's at 6 for me. And then I actually have Thorson 5. Where do you have Thorson? Come on.
I had him at number 2, but I moved him to 4. And I
tell you what.
Let's do let's start with the top 3, and then we'll figure out the 4-5 situation. So are we are we at least in agreement that Shea Patterson, Jordan Teamu, and Brian Scott are the top 3?
Yes.
Okay.
They're in the top 3 for both of us. And I think that's reasonable to argue.
Who do you think? Do you have an affinity towards one or the other for the number 1?
I almost sound like an XFL homer if I say Teamu, but I honestly want to see more out of Patterson. That's why I can't put him at 1. I know that people like even Fox Sports with their write-ups, they're like he's got high upside. I'm like, I agree. He does. He's needing more time, but he has the intangibles to put it all together. And Michigan has a good roster, and he's got Jeff Fisher, of course, to back him up, to give him support. I don't right out of the gate though. I mean, if I'm looking at experience, I mean, Teamu, I have to argue that he goes at 1, and I think that you put 1A, 1B as Teamu and Brian Scott, just because
I almost agree there.
Just because the recent play in a professional setting with the TSL and the XFL, these two have not been away from the field too long, and even Teamu's been in the NFL scene. His talent's recognized, and also Teamu, I'm going to be frank, I had a mock drafted here in Tampa Bay because he fits Todd Haley's system very well. Todd Haley is a heavy RPO guy. That is right in his wheelhouse. And I'm telling you, that the Bandits are going to be fun to watch because of the fact that offense is built around Jordan. It's perfectly built around Jordan.
So I agree with you there. I think Teamu goes number 1, and for a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. So beyond having like experience recently, it was with the XFL. It was one of the top 2 teams, arguably. I think by the standings, I think weirdly enough they were behind the Defenders at the end of the year, but realistically it was a tied schedule. Teamu has grown since then, and I think this is going to be kind of like that breakout year. It was almost his breakout year with the XFL, but I think he has the tools around him and the familiarity. I mean, he's not going to be throwing to a Bruno Reagan, But it's always nice to have somebody around you, though, that you knew, right? That's going to be helpful in itself.
Don't underestimate the connection between a center and a quarterback. Trust me, I was a center in high school, and funny enough, Aaron Ellis was my quarterback, as we were talking on the stream. It is important to have that connection right out of the gate, especially on the line. So that is a valuable pickup that they had. And I imagine Jordan was one of the guys saying in his ear, like, you got to get Bruno if he's here.
Oh, yeah. I
mean, that connection alone from back in 2020, wouldn't doubt it came up. So it fits the offense well. Like Jordan easily. Scott goes too because of the fact they got pieces around him that he's familiar with, and dude's just an underrated talent, and people still don't know who he is.
This is what I love about Brian Scott, at least this year. He's going to be the guy that everybody, after like 2-3 weeks, people are going to be like, whoa, this guy is electric. This guy is fun to watch. And that's going to be fun to watch online, is all the new fans that get to learn about Brian Scott. Because, I mean, you and I, we've seen more than a handful of exciting plays from this dude, and I can't wait to see him in the USFL. With, again, the familiar coach thing is going to be huge for him, right? Having that consistency coming through, sign him up. I think they're good to go. So, I mean, that puts Shea Patterson at number 3. But, again, these top 3, even really all of them, we're talking like fractions of a decimal separating them all. But I think you hit the nail on the head. When we look at the top 2, they've played more recently at a semi-higher level, if you will, right? Correct. Shea Patterson, I think he's going to be a stud, and I think he's going to ball out in this league, but he needs to show it, right? He needs to come in, he needs to show it, and he has that competition. Now, at the end of the day, at the end of the season when we do this, I could easily see him bumping up to that number 1 spot if he wins out on that quarterback competition, because it's those competitions that really make these players strive. I mentioned it earlier with the Roughnecks with Connor Cook and PJ Walker, and I think we have that scenario brewing here with the Panthers, to where even I would love to see both of them playing throughout the season, switch them up a little bit too, because I think they both have a different fun style of play. But Shea Patterson, I think he needs that. If this was maybe after week 1 or 2, this might be different. But right now, before the play, number 3. But that ain't bad. I mean, top
not
3.
At all.
Top 3.
No, not at all. So we got to revisit.
Yeah, so now we got to figure out 4 or 5.
Magoo and Thorson.
Magoo and Thorson. So let me ask you this. When's the last time you watched a Clayton Thorson highlight video?
Or is this how we're going to decide it?
Because this is how it is. And it goes long as hell, and the guy catches it, and they score time and time and time again.
I mean, you aren't wrong. Like, those were some of some of the best recent years in Northwestern football.
I have a second argument.
I'm not going to, I mean, Big Ten play. So, you're playing with with a lot more likely NFL caliber talent. That's not saying that you can't, but yes, that surrounding is a lot better, I think, for evaluation, you know.
Second argument, Midwest is the best. Northwestern. It's almost in the name, and it is in the Midwest.
I mean, if you want me to be a homer even more, I root for Chicago sports area teams. Technically, Evanston is a suburb of Chicago, so I can do that too. If we're doing the fan, it's like that's the deal. But I mean, Thorson, he again, his tenure with Northwestern was pretty solid. Those are some of the better Northwestern teams in recent history under Pat Fitzgerald, who, by the way, great consistent piece in college football and in the Big Ten that I think doesn't get as much credit nationally as he does, but in the Big Ten realm, he gets a ton of recognition for what he's done for that program. I mean, I guess if we're going to talk about the factor of like level, maybe that's how I rate it to where I'm okay. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of upside in Alex Magoo. Like, I'm serious. I am looking forward to seeing this kid play. But I guess for the early season one, because that's really what this is, I'm okay putting Thorson 4, only for that fact.
I'll take
we get to see him that.
I'm not even going to argue with you anymore because I got my way this time. But this is what I think should be fun. I think we do this midway through the season, and we do it again at the end of the season.
We should,
and we could look back on this and say either wow, we were so right, or oh my God, we were so wrong.
We absolutely should mark that down, because with any spring football league, this was even brought up too with those that are much more tuned with this type of football than others. You know darn well that by the end of the year, I would say at least 2 of these guys are not going to be starting. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, but it's just the beast. That is the beast of spring football. Is going to happen.
I mean, we saw it with the XFL. We saw it with the AAF. We've seen it time and time again. So, yeah, I mean, it's very possible that that's what we see here. I mean, heck, we saw it with the spring league even in 1 or 2 cases as well.
Eventually, you have to have a loser with winners, and those coaches will start to flip things around if their QBs are the problem, you know. Now, if everything's sunshine and rainbows for the quarterbacks and it's like line play or your defense is like a wet paper napkin, then yeah, we don't have to talk about it that way. But odds are at least, I'll even go even less, at least one's going to be flipped around for their backup.
Oh, absolutely.
At least one. I'll put it at that. Bare minimum. But
so I think this list's looking pretty good. Let me just run it down real quick, just so for the audio listeners especially. Sure. I always forget we have audio listeners. I always just assume that it's always on YouTube, but this will be important.
Gotta check out the YouTube version then.
You're missing out. You're missing out. I actually do wear a ref shirt most of the time. So number 1, we got Jordan Teamu. 2, Brian Scott. 3, Shea Patterson. 4, Clayton Thorson, Houston Gambler, all in. Number 5, Alex Magoo. Number 6, Kyle Slaughter or Sloter. We'll figure that one out. 7, Kyle Laletta. And 8, Ben Holmes. And this is nothing against any of these players, because I'll reiterate again. I do want to read it because I bet you maybe 1 or 2 of these guys might watch. We're talking fractions of a decimal point in difference here. I mean, realistically, like I said, we almost have a 1, 2, 3 and a tie for 4 for the rest. It's kind of how I see it. And even it could even be a tie for 3. That's how close we are, even on that level, in my opinion. Now, halfway through the season, we can look at this and heartily laugh or heartily say, we told you so. But we're going to find that out soon.
Very soon. Good, solid stuff. Want to hear your guys' rankings, by the way, much like we did with the jerseys. Feel free to drop that in the comments if you're watching online, or if if you're listening to the podcast version and you want to do that, head on over there, drop it in there too. I mean, we love to see these type of opinions. Please feel free to do so, because I mean, it's early season. There's a lot more that you're going to be kind of watching out to see how this pans out. Technically, we're all speculating as to how this pans out. So we're all in the speculation zone on the rankings for quarterbacks in one way, shape, or another.